About a year ago, I had an experience that would change my life. It totally hit me out of nowhere, and because it was so unexpected, it really threw me off my feet. Try not to break out crying like my mom did. Here's the story. So I'm on a public transportation bus, coming home from my baseball game. Now, I hate the bus, but our family has this saying that tongues don't say can't, so I'm not allowed to say that I can't take the bus home. So here's my stop. I get off, and the bus driver just tells me to cross in front. So I start walking. And then I realized I forgot to look before I crossed. You know how sometimes when you're really behind, you try to consolidate things or do things backwards, starting with the easiest one? Right, it's probably just me. So I look right first and I see a car whizzing past me. Phew, it's good I looked right first, right? And then I hear the screeching of tires to my left. So I turn to my left and I see a bright red car. I think to myself, why is it going so fast and why is it getting so close to me? And then it hits me. Really hard. Don't tell me I didn't warn you about this part. Now before this incident, I couldn't even do a cartwheel. Somehow this car gives me superpowers. I go flipping and twisting and rolling and flying like Gabby Douglas would be proud. But I don't exactly stick the landing. Actually, I kind of just smack on the concrete half dead. And then I hear the screeching of tires as my $30,000 hospital bill payment drives away. So I open my eyes and the first thing I see are gates. Except they aren't the pearly white gates. They're black gates. And I'm about to say, I think you got the wrong guy! When some real people jerk me back to reality. One guy calls my mom, who arrives in about 25 minutes. Another guy calls an ambulance, which arrives in about 5. At this point, you're likely wondering 2 questions. 1, is this a true story? And 2, why am I making fun of myself getting hit by a car? So to the first question, yes, this actually happened to me last year. I wouldn't make up a story about how I was dumb. I just happened to be dumb. To the second question, I use this example humorously because, well, that's actually one of my first thoughts when I came to my senses. My serious first thought was, wow, I'm alive, thanks God. But my second and more pervasive thought was, how many 8-ball cards, debate cases, and speeches can I apply this incident to? Here's the thing though, I think I have license to complain about what happened. After all, I had to limp around for over a week. I missed almost half of my baseball season, and we're still paying off the hospital bills that the driver never owned up to. But what I came to realize through this experience is that if you're not grateful, you're just grating. Sorry, I know you're really fed up with all the cheesy puns. I thought it was pretty good. Health researcher Steven Reinberg found that people that claim to be happy end up living 13 years longer than those who don't. So how do we be happy? Dennis Prager says, all happy people are grateful. Ungrateful people cannot be happy. So the key to happiness is gratefulness. Now, I'm sure you've heard like a billion speeches on this topic of being happier, right? But I want to give you some practical, actionable advice. Specifically, 3 tips to become happier. So the first tip is to grasp the bigger picture. Let's take a look inside the ambulance that I'm riding into the hospital. I just have one burning question I have to ask the paramedics. Will I be able to take the ACT tomorrow? Now the reason why I ask this is because I can just imagine my dad coming over to me and I'm like, Dad, I just got hit by a car. I can't take the ACT tomorrow. And he's like, son, tongues don't say can't. So at 2 o'clock on the morning of the test, the doctor comes in and he says, I heard you really want to take the ACT that is happening in a few hours. I don't think you'll do very well. I'm like, excuse me? You're not realizing I'm homeschooled? But he clarifies and tells me I'm not in the right condition and I don't have enough sleep. So he leaves and in walks a nurse and she says, don't worry about the ACT, just focus on recovery. And then a brain doctor comes in and says, I hear you really want to take the ACT. And I'm like, what do you guys do? Announce it to the whole hospital? So I missed the test. What you probably don't know is that I had studied a total of just 2 hours before the test. Actually, it's because I'm a typical stuck-up homeschooler and I thought I'd get a good score even if I didn't study. Let's just say the extra time was really good for me. You could almost say my ego took a hit. So the point is that if we can see the bigger picture, we can become more grateful and less grating. The second tip is to notice your own suffering. It sounds weird, but here's what I mean. So the ambulance drops me off at the hospital and my uncle brings me McDonald's. It's funny because I didn't get to the pearly white gates, but I did get to the golden arches. So I'm lying back in my bed trying to eat the burger but failing because the IV in my arm is impeding my range of motion. Now Dad's the only one left in the room at this point, and I'm a teenage guy, which means I can do anything on my own and I don't need my parents anymore. If you didn't laugh at that, you probably have a rebellious teenage child. But my hunger is overpowering my masculinity, so I asked my dad to feed me. I felt like a baby again, except not as cute. And I realized in that hospital bed how much of a blessing it is to be able to use my arms. The point is that post-suffering time allows us to reflect on what we didn't have, but now have again. Maybe the tragedy is really horrible though. See, a horrible breakup with your one true love. I speak from experience. My $400 baseball glove and I haven't been seeing each other over 3 years because I lost it. Surely in extreme instances we can't be grateful, can we? Actually, we still can. The final tip to become more grateful is by looking forward. After about 2 weeks of pain, I was able to play baseball again, except that the doctor didn't want to clear me. Apparently, baseball is considered a contact sport. Though my teammates can't seem to make contact, but I digress. So here it is, our first home game, and the owner of the Chicago Cubs shows up because the Cubs sponsored our field. And I'm sitting on the bench. I'm not saying I'm good, I'm just saying everyone else is bad. And I'll never get that opportunity to play in that special game back. But what I needed to realize then was that baseball wasn't over. And as believers, no matter what happens, there's always more to look forward to. I hope we can say with Paul that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed to us. Paul does a great job of looking forward. Now, don't take that advice literally, please. I tried to follow his advice of just looking forward. It didn't go so well. But in every circumstance, we have to be grateful, otherwise we'll just be grading. Let me give you an example from my own life. We lived in Chicago since I was born, but my dad was laid off and had to look for a new job. Prior to this past December, he had been rejected by 100 out of the 100 companies he had applied for. Kind of sounds like my love life. Anyway, in late December, he interviewed for a job with a group in Texas called Right Now Media. He got the job and started work a couple days later. They said they were Right Now Media, they weren't kidding. So our family followed a couple months later, and now we live in the great big lonely state of Texas. The move definitely wasn't fun, but I had to learn to be grateful. Let's see how to apply these 3 tips to my move. The first tip was to grasp the bigger picture. Obviously the cliche is that everything is bigger in Texas. The houses are bigger, the pools are bigger, the egos are bigger. I was disappointed to realize my eyes did not get any bigger when we moved. But since Texas does have larger houses, we have a much larger house than the sardine can we all shared in Chicago, and I learned to be grateful for that. The second tip was to notice your own sufferings. This one's easy. I sweat buckets in Texas, and Mom doesn't like turning on the AC very high, so sometimes it's cooler outside than it is inside. But I learned now to be more thankful for the cold weather. And finally, even if there is no bigger picture, we can always look forward. In other words, even though I may not have a lot of friends now, I'm sure I'll have a lot of friends in a few months. I mean, who wouldn't want me? I'm tall, dark, and handsome. Minus the tall and the handsome. Before I close, I wanted to address the elephant in the room. Okay, maybe it wasn't for you, but it was for this one parent. She said, I heard about your accident. I'm so sorry. Did you by chance land on your face? I was like, does it look like it? I mean, I actually think I look pretty good, all things considered. My plastic surgeon was very talented. See, if you don't want to be grading, try being grateful. People will like you. Also, another pro tip, look left first. I'm so cautious that I always look both ways, even if it's a one-way street. Thank you.